Hello, welcome to another video from the Roath Local History Society. My name is Ted Richards.
And I'm John Roberts.
And behind the camera today we have Gordon Plant. Today we're going to look at this building behind us, the Mackintosh, or the Mac as it's often known. But let's just introduce you to where we are. We're right in the heart of Roath. Do you know, if somebody asked me where the centre of Roath is, I'd probably point right here. We've got City Road off to my right, we've got Albany Road behind us a few streets, and right nestling in the middle of the streets of Roath we have this wonderful building, the Mackintosh. We're going to look at some of the history of the building today and the people who lived here, because it's got a long history and a lot of people have lived here. John's going to introduce us to some of the history of the building itself.
Well, the Mackintosh and its grounds are the vestige of a much larger estate. In around 1800, when it was built, it was part of the Roath Court estate, and that estate stretched from Roath Court itself, the current funeral home, about half a mile away to the east, all the way to City Road, or Hale Plucker, as it was called there, or Plucker Lane. Now, the ownership of the estate around this time is a bit uncertain. It changed hands a number of times over 30 years. But in 1800, when we think this was built, it was owned by John Jacob. And he was a wealthy man, a wealthy banker, originally from Canterbury. And I understand that around that time, the estate was heavily mortgaged. So it's my guess that he built the Mackintosh as a gentleman's residence, a bit of a build to let, a money spinner to help pay the mortgage. In 1809, the estate was advertised for sale, and Roath Lodge, as it was then called, was described as a handsome and newly built residence consisting of 3 parlours, 4 airy sleeping rooms, a well-arranged kitchen, and many other conveniently attached offices, with 50 acres of rich lawn, meadow and arable land adjoining. The crenellations are purely architectural decoration. The building you see now is pretty much as it was built then. It was accessed by a drive that went down to what is now City Road, and the conveniently described offices, which I think is what a posh word for stables, is built on the other side in what is now Upper King Craig Street. Well, in 1811, the estate, the Roath Court estate, which still included Roath Lodge, was bought by John Wood, and he was a banker and a bit of a go-getter for the Marquess of Bute. But he fell foul of all sorts of financial and political shenanigans, eventually falling out with the second Marquess of Bute, which led to his downfall. He died in 1817, and the estate was then taken over by his sons. Now, during this time, Roath Lodge was let out to a number of well-to-do gentlemen, including at least 2 former ironmasters and a retired military officer. John Wood's death resulted from him falling from a horse, and this was not the first horse-related incident that we'll see that occurred to this estate. Now, his sons inherited, but in 1824 they faced bankruptcy, and the Mackintosh and its grounds were forcibly sold. It was bought by a Liverpool ship owner called William Kemp, but that was put back on the market very soon afterwards in 1831. At that time, the estate was then divided, so Roath Court estate was everything to the east of Cottrell Road, and the Mackintosh or Roath Lodge estate was between Cottrell Road and City Road. And then just a few years later, the estate was sold yet again, this time to the Richards family, and they then referred to the house as Roath Castle. And Ted will now tell us some more about the Richards family.
Our first mention of the Richards family goes all the way back to the late 17th century. There was an Alderman Richards who lived in the middle of town, corner of St Mary's Street and Church Street, I've recently been told. And over the years, the Richards family accumulated quite a bit of wealth by marrying into some quite wealthy families themselves. So it was one of the Richards family, John Matthews Richards, who started to live here in the 1830s. John Matthews Richards himself married Arabella Calley from Wiltshire. another wealthy family, and it's interesting to note that their family home in Wiltshire had the same crenellated roof that the Mackintosh has got. So I don't know whether one copied the other or what, or whether it was just very fashionable at the time. So John Matthew Richards, the man who lived here, and married Arabella, they had a son called Edward Priest Richards. Now Edward Priest Richards himself, he married into the Tyler family of Cottrell House, near St Nicholas, west of Cardiff. Another wealthy family. She was actually granddaughter of Admiral Tyler, who was part of Nelson's navy, would you believe? One of Nelson's right-hand men. It's quite handy because Nelson didn't have a right hand. So poor Edward Priest Richards had a very unfortunate end. He was attending a ploughing batch up in St Mellons, and he was on his way home from that, probably having availed of a bit of the hospitality, and coming down Newport Road, which used to be called Roath Road, he turned into City Road and put on a bit of a gallop on his horse, and he ran straight into the back of a manure cart, and he was killed instantly. What a sad end. The other sad part of the story of the death of Edward Priest Richards, never mind him dying on City Road, was that his wife was pregnant at the time. So the daughter was born without ever knowing her father. Let me just consult my notes to get her name completely right. She was Harriet Diana Arabella Mary Richards. May have had to have so many names to name all the streets after her. Now at the age of just 6, her mother died. So there she was, inheriting a huge fortune of the Richards estate when she was only 6 years old. So I'm going to introduce you to another person now, and would you believe his name was also Edward Priest Richards. He was the uncle, and he was a very wealthy man indeed. He had been agent for the Bute estate when the Marquis of Bute was very young, not able to handle his own financial matters, I believe. So Edward Priest Richards helped build up the wealth of the Bute estate. So when Edward Priest Richards the elder died, he had a lot of money. He was a bachelor, and he had a lot of money in his estate, and that too came down to Arabella Richards, or Ella she was called. So Ella, now only 10 years old, inherited all this wealth. She had a board of trustees to look after that wealth, who looked after it for her.
So as a young woman, Ella spent some time in the family's home in London, and she was part of a social circle which probably included that of the Mackintoshes, who also had a family home in London. And that's where it's likely she met Alfred Donald Mackintosh, the 28th clan chief of the clan Mackintosh, known as the Mackintosh of Mackintosh. Now, Alfred Mackintosh had an ancestral home at Moy Hall near Inverness, 400 miles away from Roath. It was a large estate, 124,000 acres, but poor quality moorland, useful only for grouse shooting. Now, he had a private education. He then went into the army after Sandhurst, resigning his commission when he became the clan chief. The family had made its money fur trapping and shipping in Canada, and also from a sugar plantation in Jamaica. The Moy Hall estate is still in Jamaica, but it now produces coffee. So with Alf's aristocratic background and Ella's huge fortune, they proved a good match. They were married in London in 1880, and thereafter spent their time between Moy Hall in Scotland, Cottrell House in the Vale, and their London home. They never lived in Roath Lodge, or Roath Castle as it was then called, and then around this time it became known as Plasnewydd, New Place or New Mansion. So instead they let it out to tenants. The Mackintoshes were good friends with King George V, and they entertained him at Moy Hall and in Cottrell House, but sadly not here. Cardiff Corporation tried to acquire the Mackintosh estate in 1883. They wanted it to be the new Roath Park, but that didn't work out, and so instead they took up an offer from Lord Bute to develop what we now know to be Roath Park. And perhaps galvanised by this proposal, the Mackintoshes then decided to sell off all of their land, 124 acres, apart from the 2 acres of the Mackintosh and its immediate grounds, and they developed it for housing. So the streets around this area abound with names associated with the Mackintosh family and the Richards family. The Mackintoshes had 2 children, a daughter who died very young, and a son, Angus Alexander. Now, he had a typically upper-class upbringing, private school, and then the army, and he was sent to Belgium in the First World War, where he was seriously injured after being shot in the chest. However, he recovered, and then he was then sent to Canada, where he married the Governor-General's daughter. All sounds idyllic. He was then posted to Washington as part of the war mission, but soon afterwards caught influenza, probably the Spanish flu that was rife around this time, and very, very sadly he died. 3 weeks after his death, his daughter was born, Anne Peace Arabella Mackintosh. Angus has the unusual distinction of being a British Army officer buried in the Arlington National Cemetery in Virginia. So Ted will now tell us more about what happened to the Mackintosh after that.
Thank you, John. So now we come to the more modern part of the story. We've already touched on the fact that Ella and Alf Mackintosh, they never lived here actually. In fact, Ella was not even born here. We've learnt that Ella was born in Cotterell House. So this house behind us, the Mackintosh, they wondered what to do with it. So they eventually decided that it would be given to the community, or leased to the community of Roath. Hence, the Mackintosh Institute was born. In 1891, they decided that it would have a library, a reading room, tennis courts, snooker tables, and we're not sure whether the bowls originated right at the beginning or just a few years afterwards, but it was only a few years afterwards. The Mackintosh Institute was opened in 1891, and in her speech, Lady Mackintosh said it would be a shame if the people of Cardiff, particularly the people of Roath, didn't have anywhere to exercise and go for sport, etc. Having built over most of her own land, it must be said, but here we are. So the Mackintosh Institute was leased to the people of Roath. 1984, the owners of the estate could see the lease drawing towards a close and decided to apply for permission to demolish the Mackintosh and build 52 flats on the site. Cardiff Council thankfully denied that permission, and it was after that that the Mackintosh estate decided that they would give the lease or sell the lease to the Mackintosh Institute itself for £170,000. So the ownership of the Mackintosh was now in the hands of the local people, which was very good. And grants were sought and given, and improvements to the building have been made over the years. So the building is safe now for the people of Roath. Right, so here we are then. The Mackintosh Institute has been saved. And what do we have here today then, John?
Well, there's a huge variety of uses now. The tennis courts, they have a tennis club here with a membership of 450.
The bowls, still the second largest or the second oldest in Cardiff.
Second oldest, yep.
But still a very healthy bowls club.
Behind us, behind Gordon there's a community garden.
That's more recent, isn't it, John? I think that's more recent. That's sort
over
of
the last 10 years, I think.
Yes, but it's looking very good.
Saturdays, the car park at the front of the site is taken over by a farmer's market, and within the building itself there's a craft market.
And there's lots of facilities indoors for people to use from the community. We've heard this morning a choir singing. There's also yoga classes, all sorts of events inside as well as a bar, of course.
There's also 4 full-size snooker tables and tennis tables as well. The sporting element persists to this day. Well, we hope that Alf and Ella will be proud of the use that is made of the Mackintosh Institute today.
Thank you for watching another video from Roath Local History Society, and we'll go away and think about some other topics to bring you in the near future.
In the meantime, please give us a like and follow the Roath Local History Society YouTube channel.
So it's goodbye from me, Ted Richards, from John here, and from Gordon Plant behind the camera, who does so much hard work with the filming and editing. Thank you, Gordon.